That's not a bad spread of axes, I reckon. Hello mates, I thought we'd do something a bit different today. We'll do a little bit of grind testing. We've got a pretty decent sort of selection of Tassies here, and quite a few of them have got different grinds, and we'll just go over, or at least maybe try to determine the pros and cons of each and just see how they go. So I'll give you a look at all of them individually, we'll talk about them a little bit, and then we'll give them a run into the timber and we'll see what happens, see if any of them stand out. Now we've only got one log here to test on, but some of these grinds are better for certain types of timber, and this timber itself is pretty dry as well, so it's probably not going to be a true test, but it'll be a good indicator at least. So we'll have a quick look at them. Alright, so first one off the rank, this is a 4.5 pound Hytest Challenger, and we've got a fairly standard grind on this. This has been taken down to about 19-20 degrees. Now this is about what you can expect from most Tassies when you get them. We do have a fairly high centerline and we've got some very slight hollows in the cheeks there. But because these run so thick behind the edge, once you start grinding, you're pretty much going to end up just with a grind shaped like this. And these are, it's pretty standard and it's going to work. It's going to do the job well. Another example of that sort of approach, this is a Holtzbrook 4 pound Tasmanian. This one's come down to a 22 convex. Again, you've got slight hollows in there, a fairly thick centre line brought down to an edge. And this one here, this is the unmarked Tassie from the Axes and Steak vid. Same thing again, we brought it down to a 20 degree, basically flat grind. So all these are, both of these ones are flat. The HB is brought down to a convex, but essentially they're all the same grind. You can see they're basically the same shape, and that's about what you can expect from most Tassies. If you just start filing or grinding a flat bevel at the edge, that's the sort of pattern you can expect. Now these two here, these are both Hytest Craftsmans. The green one on the left is a 4 pound, the grey one is marked as a 4 pound, but it was a little bit overweight. Now again, these have both been taken down to a 19-20 degree flat grind. You got fairly distinct wings on this one, forged in wings. This one did have those, but they weren't quite as deep. So what I've done is I've ground those wings out. I've hollowed out this center line a little bit and just basically defined the cheek. So the edge pattern is basically the same, and the cheek pattern has been brought down a little bit more distinct than this. And we tested this on the last video and it cut pretty well. Now here we've got two examples of a more flat cheek design Tasmanian. The one on the right is the Kelly World's Finest Dandenong. The one on the left is a fairly late era Hytest Craftsman. Now both of these were pretty much flat cheeked axes, still very thick and wedgy, but basically a flat cheek. And this is sort of what Tassie's kind of morphed into over the years. This is an Australian made Kelly, so it's fairly recent. It's marked as a 2 kilo, so I'm guessing probably sometime in the 70s. But the grind on this one's a bit unique. It came to me like this. I didn't actually grind it, but it's been hollowed out, so we've got a flat cheeked head that's been hollowed out and brought down into a 19 degree chisel. So it's quite a thin grind, and it's often quite hard on a Tasmanian to achieve this sort of fairly even, probably 10mm wide chisel grind, because they're often got such a high center line. You end up with one of those, you often end up with a grind more like this. But you can see the difference between those two, whereas this has all been hollowed out to allow that more uniform edge down there. So I've never swung this one before, so we'll see how it goes. Someone had to be pretty dedicated to do this. This would have been a fair amount of work, even on a fairly thin-ish Tassie. That's still a fair bit of work. Now these are the main three that I'm most curious about, because they're the biggest differences in between them. So you've got a hollowed out but high centre line, 19. You've got a fairly standard grind on this one. That's down to 19 with a pretty much standard cheek pattern. And then you've got a completely hollowed out with no centre line, brought down into a 19-degree chisel. So we'll see how they go. Alright, now just out of curiosity today, I brought along a moisture meter. So I've got it set to Blackbutt, which is what this tree is. So we'll just take a measurement. Now obviously I cut these a fair while ago, it's been about 2 weeks. So I'd expect to see pretty much nothing in that, certainly less than 20. So that's saying 10.2 on a cut that's been exposed to the sun for a little while. So I'll quickly put a little notch in here and we'll see what we've got in the centre there, or at least in the sapwood there. Alright, so we've exposed about an inch of sapwood. We'll see what's in that. That's at about 14%. And if we throw this into the heartwood, we're at about 17. So that's fairly dry timber. It is winter time at the moment, but I reckon if I was to put a little notch into one of these standing live trees, we'd probably be at 70% or more. And if it's a winter flowering tree, you'd probably be up around 90%. So that's some pretty dry wood. Alright, so first one, we'll go the Challenger with the standard 19-degree flat. That's not bad. And we've come around to the back of the log, so we're not cutting in as wet a timber as possible. Definitely throws chips. And we'll open this cut up. Now this is quite big timber, about 15 inches or so. Bloody hard timber too. It's a little bit sticky when you get it buried in there. Alright, and that's fairly clean, and you can feel the moisture still in that. Let's check it. And the centre there, 53%. It's amazing the difference. So the Challenger did pretty well. Could maybe be just a little bit sticky. Alright. 4-pound Craftsman, hollowed bevels, hollowed centre line. Here we go. Just in those few hits, it already feels freer in the wood. Makes a difference. Not a bad hit. Couple of bad hits in this one. Jeez. Knocking all this bark off. Get out of there. So I mentioned on the last video that I'll show you this big old tree. You see it's been marked by forestry as a hazard. One of the coolest things, you can see the old ringbark lines on it. She's definitely seen better days, this old girl. That's an awesome tree. This would be a blackbutt. I don't really know how long ago this would have been barked, but it could be decades and decades. It's probably about 2 meters or so across where the cut line is. I'm guessing the ground's dropped a little bit since it's been cut, because I could probably not really reach that. You can still see the old axe marks in it. You can see the sloping cut up the top here, nice and straight. Blackbutt wool coppice. So I don't know if this would have been poisoned. I don't know what they were using for poison back then. But forestry wouldn't cut this down, I wouldn't imagine. This would be a habitat tree. A lot of bird life and all sorts of animals getting in there. It's a monster. Just to show you some scale, this is a 4-pound Tassie head on a 33-inch handle. This is the unmarked Tassie from that Axes and Steak vid. So you see. So this is my natural swing now. So yeah, I think the ground's dropped a little bit. That's hard timber. I probably wouldn't even be able to get this to stick. Nope. Nope. Not sticking at all. That's crazy. Blokes used to do this for a job back in the day. I've done a bit of it over the years, never on a tree the size of this. Bloody amazing. Hytest even made a special axe for it called a ringbarker. I'd love to get my hands on one of them. Classic old axe. Yeah, awesome tree. Now, I've never used this before. I did have to reshape the handle that it came on. Come with a nice piece of hickory, it was just a little bit too thick for me. And it's just a touch longer than what I'd usually go for. This one came out to about 30.5 inches or so. The rest of these are all around the 28 mark. But I'm keen to give this thing a go. This is going to be cool. Look at that edge. Beautiful. Alright. Here goes the Kelly. Looking forward to this. Tell you what, that little bit extra length of handle, it does make a difference. I feel like I don't have to bend down so much. Almost just pendulum the thing in there. Very little effort. Still tight. Nice amount of flex in it. Hasn't popped the chip yet though. That was a bad hit. Accuracy is a little bit off with this. Not unexpected with a new axe. Pretty good. Alright, widen it up. The handle shape I ended up getting out of this is not unlike the Lemica work axe. Fairly flat oval shape. Very similar palm swirl. Nice, I like it. I do have to shift down a little bit when I'm doing the top cut. Which does make it a bit awkward. Much easier doing the bottom cut though. Definitely a messy cut. like this thing though. Whew. Alright, so there we go. So there's the Challenger. Edge held up fine, no significant damage. There's the notch. Not too bad. 4-pound Craftsman. Again, no edge damage. A little bit of a messier notch, but that's my fault. Now we've got the Kelly. Edge held up pretty well. There's a few little marks in there, but nothing to worry about. You probably strop that out. Just tiniest little bits just there. But I should point out also that this had no micro bevel. This was just a 19 flat. So that's a good indicator of some good steel. If you can handle a 19 flat with no micro, it's doing pretty well. I didn't notice a huge amount of difference between the grinds. The Challenger did feel maybe a touch stickier. I'd say that these two, the Craftsman and the Kelly, were definitely a bit freer in the wood. Yeah, with a test subject of 1 notch each, you know, can't really draw too many conclusions, but that's not too bad. I think they all did pretty well. Alright mates, thanks for watching. And we've still got to get down in that gully. We'll come back and finish this log another day. Alright mate, so I couldn't do a video about grinds without giving the Keech a bit of a mention. Pretty much out of any axe that I've got, Keech has probably had the most amount of work to it. When I first got this, there was a couple of, these are a cast axe, and when I first got it there was a couple of voids along this edge, so I had to reshape the edge, which then of course meant you've got to take more off the cheeks. So I did all that. It chopped okay. I kept it for 6 or 8 months like that and just tested it out in a few different types of wood, and I think we ran it in that big spotted gum we did a while back. But after a while I decided to regrind it again, so it's actually been shortened a fair bit, and to begin with it's already a pretty wedgy, pretty thick wedgy axe. But this thing ended up having, after 2 rounds of grinding, it's ended up with a 20-degree chisel on the edge, and then we've got a hollow directly behind the chisel, and then it opens back up into its full width, and you've got basically a bust just up here prior to the eye, just forward of the eye. So I love this thing. We've seen it before a couple of times. It chops really well, so we'll give it a run in this timber and see how she goes. Now, one thing to keep in mind with the Keech, it is a little bit heavier than the other 3. This is a full 5-pounder. Whoop. Missed that one. There's some chips. Nice.